My beloved Texas has some different problems. His name is John Cornyn. His approval ratings have plummeted after he helped the Democrats attack the Second Amendment. But he didn't stop there. He voted in favor of an omnibus bill that prohibited funding be used to secure the border. Texas is burdened with Cornyn for 4 more years, and I found this unacceptable. So I started searching for ways to protect Texas from a senator who votes against our interests. I arrived at the conclusion that the 17th Amendment, which destroyed the original intent of the Constitution, that senators would be ambassadors of their states in Washington, D.C., that was the source of our pain in Texas, allowing the likes of John Cornyn to harm Texas without any checks on his power. Former HHS Trump official and Texas State Representative Brian Harrison has taken that concept and filed a bill that restores the original intent of our Constitution. He joins us now to share more about this. Sir, it is always fantastic to have you here on the Chris Salcedo Show. And if your bill passes, the people will elect their senators. But if the legislature determines that a senator betrays Texas, as Cornyn has, they can be recalled by a majority vote in both houses of the legislature. Why did you take up this mantle?
Well, you mentioned it just a minute ago, Chris. I mean, the 17th Amendment has done perhaps irreparable damage to the original intent of the Constitution. The senators originally under our Constitution were supposed to be sort of like ambassadors of the states to the federal government. Remember, the federal government was supposed to be a creation of and responsible and beholden to the sovereign states. But what the 17th Amendment has done is we effectively now have 2 House of Representatives, two bodies of people that are directly elected. And what it has done, it has allowed an acceleration of federal expansion of power that the states never would have tolerated. So what this bill does, I proposed a plan down here in Texas. We can't change the 17th Amendment just as one state, but what we can do as a state is start taking bold actions to let Texas stop prostrating ourselves at the altar of the almighty federal government. And if we send a senator to Washington who's supposed to look out for our interests, in the event that they sell out, become beholden to D.C. special interests, a 2/3 vote of both chambers of the Texas legislature could bring that senator back, and we could send somebody back to Washington, D.C., who will more faithfully represent the interest and the will of the people of Texas and keep the 10th Amendment at the forefront of their minds and their actions, and make sure that our freedoms and our liberties are no longer continuing to be eroded by an absolutely runaway federal government right now at the hands of the Biden administration.
Amen to that. John Cornyn has forgotten Texas. He's too enamored with Mitch McConnell. Let's get on to some other news, shall we? Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg abusing his power to target Trump, all while he lets violent criminals roam free in the rotten apple. Last year, he reduced 52% of all felony charges to misdemeanors, while for Trump, he's elevating a misdemeanor to fabricate a felony. Texas legislators are working on holding rogue DAs like Mr. Bragg accountable for their refusal to punish crimes. Tell us about the Texas bill, and shouldn't every state be taking action to rein in lawless DAs?
Well, absolutely. Just like this is just another example of elected officials, government offices, agencies sacrificing the core function of their job. In this case, it's the district attorney. But what you were talking about at the Pentagon, their core mission is to protect our borders and neutralize threats abroad. Instead, we're spending money on diversity offices and DEI staff and personnel. Well, these district attorneys, their job is to keep our streets safe. Are they focusing on that? No, they're not. They're letting violent criminals back out on the street time and time again to commit violent crimes, robberies, rapes, murders. They are taking it upon themselves to remove the people. They're destroying representative government because it's only supposed to be through the legislature that we create laws. And if we have a law on the books, a DA is supposed to faithfully execute it. They swear an oath to it. But they're violating their oaths. They're putting my constituents in risk. So we've got legislation in Texas, multiple bills to do this. One that I'm proud to have co-authored with my friend David Cook down here that would make them liable. They're going to have to pay the price. $1,500 or $2,500 for the first time, $25,000 the second time they don't do this. If they erase a policy that the legislature put on the books for them, we've got another bill that would actually allow the attorney general to come in and make them do their job, or ultimately remove them from office. We're not going to stand by and let our constituents be threatened by these rogue district attorneys.
Right on. One just minor tweak. It's not DEI. We call it DIE, diversity, inclusion, equity. We don't, at least here on this program, we don't surrender to the left wing way of phrasing things. All Americans suffered medical tyranny at the hands of uninformed or ill-intended politicians and big unaccountable government. You know this very well. Your Texas COVID Vaccine Freedom Act was heard this week. What is in this, and how can it protect Texans and other states who adopt similar language?
Well, look, Texas has a well-earned reputation for leading the nation in the defense of freedom and liberty and traditional values. We have got to finally, this session, protect 30 million Texans from these tyrannical and medically unjustifiable COVID-19 vaccine mandates. Chris, if we can allow freedom-loving Texans to have needles placed into their arms against their wishes, especially not just by Washington, D.C., Chris, but by unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., we might as well give up on the 10th Amendment, give up on freedom, give up on liberty, give up on informed consent, give up on medical freedom. Chris, I don't think you can have freedom without medical freedom. So what I've got to bill, the Texas COVID Vaccine Freedom Act, I believe it's going to pass. It would make it illegal for any person in Texas to force another person in Texas to have a COVID vaccine against their will. And then we would say, hey, if somebody simply refuses to accept a COVID vaccine mandate, guess what? In Texas, it would be illegal to punish that person. So no longer can we have people that lose their jobs, have their careers ruined by these tyrannical COVID vaccine mandates. Chris, do you remember early in 2020 or mid-2020, nurses and doctors, they were hailed rightfully as heroes for treating patients with a new disease for which there was no protection. But how many of those people did we throw out onto the streets and ruin their careers? How many military officers, brave men and women, lost their jobs to these tyrannical mandates? It's time for it to end. Texas needs to take its rightful place leading the nation in defense of medical freedom.
Great leadership on your part. Brian Harrison, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your time.